Raj Bhala, distinguished professor at University of Kansas. Professor, so much to unpack here. Let me just begin with your reaction to Supreme Court's ruling on these tariffs.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with you. My reaction is not surprised at all because the court framed the issue, as it rightly should, narrowly. Whether the text of the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, supports the president's view that he has the power to impose tariffs. So it's a narrow textual question. And anyone who's read the language of that text knows that the text does not speak about tariffs or taxing powers. It does speak about regulating importation. But as the Supreme Court, I think in my view, rightly said, tariffs and tax, which are a tax, are something very different from the kind of regulation of importation IEPA contemplates. IEPA contemplates and has always been used to prohibit imports or exports or to impose licenses, but it's never been used ever since it was signed by President Jimmy Carter in 1977 to impose tariffs, taxes on foreign imports. Moreover, as constitutional law students know in their first or second year of law school, the president was going up against 200 years of Supreme Court precedent dating back to 1819 and famous cases.
Yeah, and I understand you're trying to give us some context here, but I also want to get your reaction to President Trump's reaction. Very angry. He seems to think that he can go ahead as before, and he's going to impose a 10% additional global tariffs. He also said there are methods available to continue to implement some of these tariffs. What do you make of that? It sounds like there's not really going to be any significant policy change from the White House. Can they do that?
Yes, the president's correct. I mean, basically, reciprocity tariffs are going to be reincarnated under any one of four or more statutory authorities. First of all, you're going to see this afternoon, as the president said in the news conference, that he will invoke Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974 to impose 10% tariffs on all merchandise from all countries. Now, query whether or not there'll be some product exclusions, as we might anticipate. He also has said he will launch Section 301 investigations. He's used that, obviously, against China in his first term, as well as against other countries. That will take some time, but I think the result of the investigation by the USTR and a 301 investigation is probably a foregone conclusion. So we can expect more 301 tariffs. He's also got, as he expressly mentioned, Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, a Kennedy-era legislation. He's used that before to impose tariffs on imports that impair or threaten to impair national security. And finally, he mentioned something almost from legal history, Section 338 of the Tariff Act of 1930, never before used, but does allow the president to impose tariffs of upwards of 50% percentage points.
So let me stop you because I'm losing you there. You're throwing a lot of numbers out there, and I just want to make sure our viewers are clear what happens next, Professor. For American consumers, it sounds like nothing is going to change, at least not in the short term. And for all the companies and countries that made all these deals with the United States, what does it mean for them at this point?
So you're absolutely right. Nothing changes in substance in terms of the money that American consumers are going to be paying. What changes is the statutory form that money is paid under, and possibly the exact amounts. But the idea of tariffs are not going to go away. Again, the analogy of reincarnation of tariffs. For foreign countries, whether they want to renegotiate the trade deals they have struck, India, for example, that is going to be up to their sovereign decision-making process. My advice to each one of those foreign countries, my humble advice would be, I would look seriously about going back to the United States and saying, well, now that you have lost this case, let's think about how we can, whether or not and how we can reevaluate our trade deal with you.
All right, we'll leave it there. Professor Raj Bhala, thank you so much.